Welcome back. You saw the live reporting from Zola Shawana yesterday, in the moments after the chair of the Alexandra Randburg Midrand Taxi Association, Victor Moekeletsi, was killed. He was shot dead after being ambushed on his way to Wynberg near Sandton yesterday. Dr Siyabulela Fobosi is a senior researcher at the University of Fort Hare, spent many years studying the history of taxis, the taxi industry, and what's happening in taxi associations. Dr Fobosi, good afternoon to you. We've seen so many cases like this, an obvious assassination. I mean, presumably, when we hear about someone being ambushed who actually is the chair of a taxi association, and I hate to say it, our first thought is that this is linked to the taxi industry.
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the viewers. Thank you for having me. It's a problem. It's a big problem. It really saddens one that people are losing their lives whilst trying to make a living. And this is a problem. It's a problem. I mean, it can't be normal that people just finding it easy to kill someone because they don't agree with. Because I would assume that that the problems have to do around the leadership issues and around the roots as well. So this is a problem, and it needs a solution, a strategy, a national strategy from the government to try to find a solution to end this problem, because it can't continue. Because I mean, you have ordinary people that continue being in the crossfire, that continue being violated because of not being able to move from point A to point B, because there's now a violence. It's a problem. It's a problem, really. It really saddens my heart that this issue is happening on a day. Almost every week we have this problem, every week, and this is unacceptable. So a solution has to be found as soon as possible.
Dr Fobosi, I mean, we've heard before from you and others about what causes violence in this industry. It's the leadership of associations. It's very contested. There's a rivalry for routes. Routes basically means money. Is there anything changing in the industry to try and prevent this violence?
Right. Thank you, Stephen. Look, you see, until there's willingness from the industry itself, we will continue to have this problem, because now what you have as an industry that obviously has different people with different interests, with their own interests, so who want to run business in their own ways. So you don't have a unified voice, even though you have your mother bodies that claim to represent your association, Santaco and the NTA, that represent the industry. But you still have the associations. You still have members affiliated to those associations who would then say, "Look, we don't want things to be done this way." So what you need then, and I've said this several times, is a unified voice, is a willingness from the industry itself, because I mean, I think government has tried, though not enough, because what the government does when these things happen is a form of what I would call a punishment, and not a preventative measure, where then the roots are identified and the issues are discussed, before they escalate into violence. So that is not happening. So rather, what you're seeing is waiting for something to happen and then implement some form of punishment, such as the closure of routes.
Yes.
So we need more than that.
Dr Fobosi, I mean, I think it was 3-4 years ago, the Gauteng provincial government had a big commission of inquiry into taxi violence. There were recommendations that were made there. I mean, are those recommendations making any difference? It doesn't seem so, I'm afraid to say. No, they don't. They don't. And the biggest problem, Stephen, I'll tell you, is that it again boils down to what I've just said about willingness. Because if government is willing to bring about change, but then if there's no willingness from the industry itself, then it becomes a problem. And this is a problem, especially because
You have the industry that complains that, look, we're not supported by government, and then still the same industry refuses for things to be changed for the better because of different interests. So hence I say there's a need for a unified voice. And in actual fact, one thing that comes to my mind, and now that you mentioned the Gauteng taxi commission, is also the lekgotla that happened, that actually the National Taxi Lekgotla in 2021, that actually brought to surface the fact that there's leadership issues, because if you remember in that lekgotla, then NTA did not participate because it claims that it's not recognized by the government. So you have those deep issues. So hence there's a need to actually sit down, the industry as a whole, to actually sit down to say, look, how do we deal with these issues? Because we can't continue with having, violence happening on a daily basis, having people killed while trying to make a living. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Sure.
It can't be accepted. So it must stop.
And sorry to interrupt you. I mean, and isn't weak policing to blame for this? I mean, again, I hate to say it, I would bet quite a lot of money we will never find out who actually was the mastermind behind yesterday's assassination. Because, I don't need to tell you this, Siyabulela, we never do.
Exactly, Stephen. Look, I'm glad you've mentioned it. That's actually one of the problems, and I've said it, and I'm still saying it now. If there's weak law enforcement and there's weak policing on the ground, especially in taxi ranks, especially in routes, there's weak law enforcement. So these problems will keep on happening. So until there's strong law enforcement, there's strong policing, right there, these problems will then stop when there's that. So we need that. We need that strong enough. And definitely, I think one of the things that I'm prepared to do is to actually write, continue writing, pieces or submissions to government and the industry itself to say, look, this is what you can do to actually address these problems, because they can't continue. We need strong law enforcement.
So we have this industry that seems trapped in this massive cycle of violence. And one of the reasons that the industry has this power, so there are a few reasons. I mean, as you know, it uses a lot of cash. There are elections for association leaders. So things are not formalized. And government has said again and again it wants to formalize associations, make them companies. Association chairs would be the CEOs. I mean, nothing's changed there. And government also says it wants to formalize the industry in that there would be a kind of single card that you would use. You'd be able to go on a PRASA train, for example, and then immediately take that card and get onto a minibus taxi with it. All of that still means that nothing's changing, and there's clearly resistance to change because it suits some people.
Look, Stephen. You see, that is not happening. That is not happening as the government wants to happen, because of these issues that I've mentioned just shortly about the lack of willingness, from the industry itself to say. And I remember, if I may. I remember more than 10 years ago when I started this research, one of the taxi owners, when I asked him about the formalization, I had used to say, like, formalization or no formalization, the point is leave our business alone. So it looks like some of them are of the view that the government wants to take their business away from that. And in actual fact, then, that the government actually wants to bring about change and wants to bring them to the table to talk about the possible changes and the benefits of formalization, for that matter. Because you remember that some of them, most of the industry, if I may put it that way, complains that there's no operational subsidies, because what it receives is just capital subsidy in the form of the TRP. So it complains that there's no operational subsidies. And yet it forgets that it can't be subsidized if it's not formalized. So hence then you need formalization to happen, because you need a formal business. You need a business with an accounting system that the government would then say, look, this is the business that we're dealing with. This is the business that has the formal structures. The employees are registered for UIF, have pay slips. So I mean, there are a number of issues that we can talk about, because I'm sure you know as well that. Even the drivers themselves, are operating up under what I would call the precarious working conditions. Sure. So they still facing those challenges. So we need to bring about change. So there needs to be willingness from the industry. There needs to be willingness from the state. So the state should not show what I would regard the strategic selectivity, because over the years the government has shown that as being selective in terms of how it deals with the public transport sector, because it has dealt more positively with the more formalized and more in a way that is punishing with the informal sector, rather than bringing those and actually talking about the issues that should be done to bring about change.
Dr Siyabulela Fobosi, thanks very much indeed. Good to talk to you again, but under very difficult circumstances. Senior researcher at the University of Fort Hare, as you can hear, an expert on the history of the minibus taxi industry.